But I grew up in Calgary, and my parents were professional. Like the idea of going and becoming a fashion designer or working in fashion, it just seemed so impossible.
It's Monday and time for the Back to Business podcast, featuring Calgary's industry leaders, insightful and inspiring conversations with founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs, and philanthropists who help shape our city. Heralding from the Calgary Petroleum Club, connecting Calgary's business leaders since 1948. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge that we live, work, and play on the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, the Tsuut'ina, the Eahe Nakota Nations, the Métis Nation Region 3, and all people who make their homes in the Treaty 7 region of Southern Alberta. Welcome today's show host, Kim Hayden.
Today's guest is Emma May. Emma is the founder of the digitally native fashion brand SophieGrace CA. She was a corporate lawyer, executive director of the Office of the Premier in Southern Alberta to the former Alberta Premier, Jem Prentice, and a real estate brokerage founder before she turned to her real love in the world of fashion and apparel. Emma is also a mom of 2 young adults. Hi, Emma. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Kim. Nice to be here.
I am so excited. Everybody, you are in for a treat. I have been actually tracking, I've been silent stalking Emma and her company, SophieGrace, for quite a while now, actually. I just stumbled upon you through, I think it was Instagram.
Yeah, I probably targeted you with an Instagram ad.
Yeah, I appreciate the target. And then, of course, I subscribe, and then I look at everything, the Navy on Navy ensembles. Like, I just love everything you're doing. Before we dive into what you do, I'd really like to actually get a little bit of a pre-frame as to who is Emma, because a lot of times the secrets to success or those crumbs within the journey kind of thing are really in the origin story.
Yeah. Well, I guess originally I was born in the UK. I was a kid, grew up here. My parents were British immigrants, and they were both working pretty hard, raised a bit by my grandmother, who was a bit insane. She was intense. She was a British governess. So we were, my brother and I were kept rather in line. And then we, would work our way out of line. Originally went to practice law, so did an English literature degree, and then went on and did a law degree and practiced law. But I had a kid at a pretty young age. So I was like 28 when I had Sophie. And I think from there on, I kind of really actually struggled to fit in throughout a career path and ended up in all sorts of different circumstances over the years, just through, life happening, right? Like, find a job that's not in a law firm, but it's still legal because I needed to have like childcare at a certain time, and I needed to like balance things, and I didn't necessarily want to be tied to the billable hour. So I went in-house with a film company and I did that, and then ended up, then having another baby, and then the company sort of went under for a bit after that, and then went back and found a job in legal recruiting. So I did that for a bit, and then went back to practicing law and did that for a little bit more, and then ended up deciding that I really wanted to spend more time with my kids. And so I quit law, much to my parents' chagrin. That was a bit of a scene when everybody's a professional and you're like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And they say, what are you doing? And you're like, I'm going to go become a real estate agent. And they looked at me like I just like sold my soul to the devil, right? Like it was like, what are you doing? Like, you have trained for years. You are an academic. Why would you go do that? Anyway, it worked actually really well. So I had then the flexibility to pick my kids up at school, set my own hours. It's a bit of an eat what you kill environment, which actually I really don't mind because I believe that, I can get the job done. I was able to use my legal skills. I was able to negotiate. And then 2 years into that, I think that was probably when I had my sort of first entrepreneurial, instinct or impulse, which really always comes from this place of I see something that I wish something existed that was like this, this, and this. And so where is it? I don't see it. So I'm going to make it. Okay, fine. So I was like, I wanted there to be a real estate brokerage that, really combines sort of this idea of like the professional relationship that you have with your banker and your lawyer and your doctor, with really beautiful marketing, right? Like I really wanted those things to come together. So I founded Charles Real Estate with that in mind, and, kept going on that path for a little while. And then in 2013, some floods happened here. So we had this giant flood, and the provincial government came out with a, response to that. So the entire downtown core of Calgary is underwater. Things are, pretty messed up. And I'm like, this is not the policy response that the government should be doing. The policy response should be this, 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 and this. And, type out this email. And I'm like, all pissy. It's Sunday night, and my husband's reading it, and he's like, you shouldn't send that email to anybody. And in that moment, I was like, oh yeah? Ding! Right? And then the email went viral, and I was getting phone calls from the guys who head up RBC here and the heads of big oil and gas companies. And everyone's like, that email was genius. And that's exactly what I'm thinking. And, and that took off. So we ended up sort of forming a community organization that then was looking at policy and how is it that you actually deal with sort of issues of flooding, and what do you do to build things around the city. And that took over my life for, a good probably 18 months. And then that ended up with me, connecting with the former Premier Jim Prentice, and then being called into his office to work with him as executive director for the office of the Premier. So I did that for a bit. And when I was in that role, I got to wear lots of suits.
Yes.
Right. And that was fine. Then we lost the election. It was what I loved about that job actually was I'd never had a role before that allowed me to see how sort of this sort of bird's eye view of community and how communities function, and the interplay between, academia, the business community, government, and not-for-profit, right? And arts communities, and how everything sort of comes together, and really meet all the stakeholders in the community of Calgary and figure out kind of the lay of the land there. So that was it was a phenomenal experience. But then, we lost the election. I went back to selling some real estate, which meant that all my suits kind of got donated somewhere. And I went back to my, happy place of jeans and t-shirts.
Yep.
But I had a board meeting one day, and I knew that this board meeting was with a bunch of people who would not be in jeans and t-shirts. So I had to come up with something. I was standing in my closet, and I was just like, where the hell have all my, suits gone? Oh yeah, I gave them all away. What am I going to wear? And then I was like, I really want just this ivory pencil skirt and a matching blouse. And I really want just mix and match separates that are super business appropriate. And that was when I had that another, this doesn't exist, and I really want it. And it really is a thing, and it should be a thing. And so that was how SophieGrace, my new company, really sort of the germ of the idea that then led to, me, who had no idea how to do any of this down this new path.
And I love the simplicity.
That was a long-winded answer.
No, I love it. I love it because I think that answer actually embodies what most entrepreneurs go through. It's when we see what we deem as an overnight success or a really viable company. If you see SophieGrace on an Instagram post now, it looks like, this is a big fancy company. This is great. And we don't know that the journey that company, that company development, that individual, the brain behind the company took to get to that.
Yeah.
And I love how you connected all the pieces, because the reality is you can actually trace a successful company back through 3 or 4 iterations of that person's professional journey.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What you see today is not necessarily you went to fashion school and you've only been on a single track.
Totally.
And I love the fact that in today's world, we give grace and space to change and pivots.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty we are now allowing. I would love to backtrack a little from a kind of a C-suite mindset, that academia mindset.
Mm-hmm.
What was the greatest challenge you faced in switching from that C-suite academia, this is the systems, this is the way it works, this is how, to the entrepreneurial, which honestly can seem somewhat chaotic? What was the biggest challenge you faced?
I think for me, it was really learning how to sell myself and become comfortable with selling myself and selling my services, and knowing that you're not getting paid unless you do. And so that's a real motivator. And then also finding my own way of doing that, right? And I think that was an interesting journey, because it wasn't me, I was like, I am not going to do a bus bench. I was about to swear again, but I won't for you. But so I'm not gonna. Yeah,
it wasn't
I'm not
your
gonna
market.
do. Yeah, it's like I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna find. It's like, how is it that I market myself and what I do? And for me, that was about having really meaningful conversations with people who I was connected with about these things. It was about learning as much as I could about what I was doing. It was putting myself out there and then learning how to put myself out there in a way that felt really repeatable, right?
Yes.
And authentic. And I don't like to use the word authentic because I think it can get overused, but
it still works.
But because if you're not, like my personal trainer, right, has this thing, and he's like, the best exercise is the exercise you'll do. Right. And so I really believe that unless you're now you can train yourself to become comfortable with something,
yeah,
but if it's truly not comfortable and you're truly not presenting yourself in the way that you really want to be presented, people will feel that.
Yes.
And I don't think you will attract as much success as you would if you found a different way. And I think eventually it weighs on you, and it's a short-term strategy.
I think a lot of people that are in the entrepreneurial space, because you're absolutely correct, selling is not intuitive to everyone.
No.
And when you can learn to share versus sell,
yes,
that is when the magic truly happens.
Yeah.
That's when you're comfortable and you're speaking to your people, right?
Yeah.
It's understanding your avatar. I find that a lot of people who are afraid of their own sharing, so they don't know truly who they are.
Yeah.
So they go out and adopt somebody else's sales process.
Yeah.
That's so hollow, and it's never sustainable.
No,
it's not sustainable. You can't get excited about Grant Cardone's selling methodology. That's his. It's not going to work for me, right? No. So it is fascinating. And sorry, no offense to anybody I'm not picking on anybody's programs or courses or methodology. Mm-hmm. But you have to be real to your soul and to you, who you are. Mm-hmm. Because here's the funny thing. When you do an open house, mm-hmm. you can only sell that house to one person. So who cares if 200 people come through, 2 people come through, and only one person comes through? Mm-hmm. You only need the house, your marketing, and your brand to speak to the person who's going to buy the house.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people forget, because we've gotten in this whole funnel cycle. Everybody's going to build a click funnel.
Yeah.
And we're going to get 1,000 people to give us their information. And then we're going to go through all that information, and 0.07% of those people will engage and then move over into the warm side. So we're doing this whole numbers game.
Right.
But when you work from a point of personal, authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
and you know exactly who you're going to speak to, so then you know who your voice is.
Yeah.
It's really a whole lot easier to do business.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. And I see that coming through in SophieGrace. I see that coming through in SophieGrace. So we've gone from lawyer and your parents going, oh my God,
Yeah.
Emma, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
To now you've proven everybody that you can build a successful real estate company.
Yeah.
Now you're going, okay, we're going to transition again. We're going to pivot again.
Yeah.
Tell me why SophieGrace and what makes it unique.
Well, I've always loved fashions. I was the person who, I've spent far too much money on it in my life. Now I spend lots more on it. Oh my God. But I was the person who designed my grade 10 grad dress or grade 12 grad dress, sorry, right? It was this gold lame halter top, and it was and I had a very clear vision of what I wanted, and I could not find it anywhere. And, and so I've always followed that. But I grew up in Calgary, and, my parents were professional. The idea of going and becoming a fashion designer or working in fashion, it just seemed so impossible, right? And yet, later in life, when I sort of came up with this idea, and then it had the clarity around it of who my market was, right? Because for me, I was as much as I was looking at my closet going, I really wish there was this modularity and that it had comfort and it had all of these other, factors to it. I love sort of the monochrome simplicity. I love the minimalism of it. I think it's a really easy way for people to look really chic without too much effort, right? And then I reflected on through that process, all of the women that I had worked with over the course of my career, right? All my friends who I did law school with and then, went through articling with and who still remain lawyers, all the women that I'd worked with in any corporate environment that I was in, right? And just how many of them, struggle with professional dress, and that is just, it's sort of this minefield for women, right? It's you can't look too sexy. You can't look too dowdy. You can't look too, it's are you dressing like a man or are you not? Are you, is the skirt too short? If you're sitting on a panel, can everybody see up your dress? Is your blouse too low cut? Is that right? There's all these weird things. And these are not things that men think about at all. They go into their closet and they put on their suit and they walk out the door and they're done. And for women, it's well, I've got these tops. Do they go with this pant? Does it go with this blazer? So what I really wanted to do was just be let's just make this solution that's super easy for you, so that if you are not as into fashion as I am, you can just go into your closet and not actually have to think about it. And there will be no, I call it brain damage for you at 7 a.m. when you are trying to get out the door so you can go then spend the rest of the day prosecuting someone or, putting together some massive deal or doing whatever it is that lights your fire that isn't fashion or clothing, right? So that was really kind of the impetus behind it, right? Was how do we actually then make this world of women's workwear actually work for women?
And I find that there is a lot of disconnect or a lot of challenge between 30 and 50 and 50 and 60 and what we should be wearing, because our bodies do change.
Yeah.
Things do shift. And it's funny because I look back now and I go, I can't believe I used to always think that I should wear all of these, control top, pantyhose, torture devices.
Yeah.
Right? Because, I got a lump or a bump here.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've noticed, let's talk about quality.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the lay of the fabric and the cut. That's the one thing I've noticed in watching and drooling all of your new releases and everything. And you mentioned the word comfort.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm seeing that a lot of your clothing line lays quite nicely. Talk to me about the thought process and what you're putting into that.
Well, I'm very lucky in that I've got a product development director who came from Lululemon, right? So yeah.
So now we know the secret there.
Yeah, you go to the pros.
Well, having the right people.
Yeah, the secret is you find the right people. And so she and I, and sort of the main fabric that we used was actually a fluke. Like we'd sought it out to do one of our dresses, and she and I had gone down to LA, and we knew kind of the things that we were looking for. So we were trying, so we'd go on these fabric sourcing trips, and we came back with a bunch of sample fabric, and then we found a trouser that we wanted to do, but we didn't have the right fabric to do that trouser. So we were just like, well, let's see if we can just get the cut right, and we'll cut it in the same fabric that we were going to do the dress in. And we put them on, and we were like, oh my God, these are the most comfortable pants on the face of the planet, and they look like a regular trouser, and they feel like your sweatpants. And so it was kind of this fluke, right? And then we were like, we should just make these out of this. Like, let's just do this. Like, let's just dive in and give people like really. So what we're, at the foundation of what we're doing and what the customer is coming back to us and saying is like, I wear this dress every day, and I'm obsessed with it because I feel like I'm wearing my loungewear, and I can put it in the machine wash, and I can do, and it's good to go. And so the pants are the same. So we've landed on this fabric and we spent a lot of time on fit and on, like, it's so funny. We were laughing the other day about like, it would be like a terrible like sexual harassment claim, because we were like, we all sit like the three of us stand around and like pick at each other's bodies as we're like, we're like grabbing the boob and, like taping underneath it, and like, right up in the crotch as we're like pinning out like things, and we're just like, okay, this has like, how's that feel? And it's like, no, tighter, right? And so we all just stand. It's like our fitting days are hilarious because we're like trying them on different bodies, trying it on, pinning it again, tightening it, looking at things, going, that does not look right. Let's get it really right, right? So we spent a lot of time on fit. And then we spend a lot of time like, that means on grading. Like this is the first time this year, I think we've gone up to 2XL in almost all the entire collection. And now we are going into 3 and 4XL in a bunch of best-selling products. But that involves regrading everything. And it's not just regrading, it's also then at some point rechanging patterns. Because as women's bodies grow, they don't just grow like out, right? Yeah. Like certain parts of your body get bigger,
and
but
they shift. But
your wrist doesn't.
No,
your neckline doesn't. You don't need some draping thing. So you need more panels and you need more seaming. And so so for us, it's like people are like, well, why can't you just do it right away? And we're like, because it actually involves us doing it right. And so, and we now know that the customer is there, because when our 2X ladies come in, like they come in and it fits them and they're like, I'm just going to buy it all. So we were actually crushing through more inventory of that than we thought we would. But we realized it wasn't that we had so many more customers. It was that customer has such limited options that when she finds things that work for her, she just buys it all, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So,
and sometimes you buy 2 of a singular piece, because when you wear through one, you need another, or you have a backup, right? Or there's a lot of women who travel.
Yes.
Tell me, how does it travel with you? Does it roll up well or fold up well?
Yeah, like it folds up, and it comes out generally not wrinkled. Like it's pretty good for that. It's heavier than I like. So one of the things that I'm working on, I'm actually going to New York next week. Not next week, the week after.
Let's hold on one second. Just mark this. We're going to New York, so we're going to go back to that. So I'm actually going to New York. I want to see what's going on. So we've got a pipe, because we're an older building and we don't have all of our baffling in. Sometimes there's Okay.
Okay. So we're going to New York in not this week, but the week after on another fabric trip. So for me, that involves, we have not found the lightweight suiting fabric that we want, because this is a thicker fabric and it's flexible and it's warm and it's comfortable. But I really want to find that lightweight fabric that will be incredible for travel. I love using silks. My customer was a little worried about silk because it's not got the sort of ease of care. So I'm on a quest to find the perfect washable silk or a really high-end like sort of Cupro style that doesn't wrinkle. We've had some issues. So for us, it's like, does it, we've got like the check boxes. Is it stretch? Is it comfortable? Does it drape in a luxurious and beautiful way, right? How does it feel on the body? Is it easy to take care of? So we have all these things that we know these fabrics need to do for us. And I'd rather take the time and find the exact right ones and then be able to actually make lots of stuff with that incredible fabric, because people become obsessed with the fabric, right? And I think, and I mean, maybe this is like the ADHD thing, like texture for me and touch. Like I've always been the person, like I have to feel it and know that it is.
And mine's always around the weight. I want to know that it's not going to hug to any lumps or bumps. It's very forgiving.
Yeah.
So I feel confident.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did notice your pants are nice and long. And that's my biggest issue is finding pants that are over 30 inches inseam.
Yeah.
And what is your average inseam on your pants?
Well, I can't answer that today.
No,
because it changes, and because we've actually now instituted a program where we are bringing out multiple lengths of most of our pants. Yeah, so we had one of our best-selling pants is called the Helen pant, and that one is a 27-inch, and it fits a lot of women. It fits most women.
Yeah,
it does not fit me.
Does not fit me. I've got a 31 inch inseam.
So we just now came out with the 30-inch version of it.
Awesome.
And we are bringing in then a 33-inch inseam in it. The pants that I'm wearing, the Josephine, these are a 33 inseam. We will be bringing out a 36, right? So we're working our way through then bringing that in. And that's actually more how men's trousers are sold.
I know. You go in and it's like, you can get this waist size with this inseam.
Yeah.
Whereas all of us are the same size as women.
I know.
That's a Mattel option.
But you mean you do have to, and this is sort of the thing is people are like, well, why can't you just offer everybody everything at once? And as a small capital limited, you can't. So you have to sort of be like, okay, well, what's the average? And our average customers, we actually sell more size small mediums than probably I would say our average customer height is about 5'6". Yeah. So, and I'm 5'10". So when we're doing some of these things, I'm like, I think this shirt is too short or too,
to the waist length.
Or too, and everyone's, and then the other one puts it on and it's like really long, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, never mind.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the younger generation that's coming up, they're quite tall. I have seen some of these, 20-something women, and you go to the high schools now, these kids are massive tall, and I'm going, oh, I guess I'm no longer the tallest kid in school. This is awesome. I'd like to wrap this up with just a couple questions. One is, how do you feel being in Alberta, being in Calgary, has helped you transition and grow as a business person?
I have mixed feelings about it.
Share with us.
I think I found my way. I think the community's been really supportive now that I'm on, especially now that I think I've kind of found my way here, but it's hard, right? I can't build most of this company in Alberta. Our production is in Vancouver. The production team is in Vancouver. The ecosystem for that is there. And the ecosystem for that is, based out of the fact that you've got Lulu, Arc'teryx, Aritzia, Mech, Oakenford, right? Like all of these apparel companies are well established there, and they're spitting people out, right, throughout, who are now spinning off into other things and that's how the energy industry has worked in Alberta for a long time here, right? So it's a weird thing for me because, even things like, I used to be very involved in some of the conversations that are about Alberta business and Alberta, policy, and it has no impact on me anymore. Like, it doesn't matter to me, right? Like, it's like, I'll go to a Chamber of Commerce event and I am not part of the conversation here.
Yeah.
I love my customers here. I see them. They love my product, but I'm not meeting a supplier there.
Your sphere is not here.
My sphere is not here. So I'm lucky that I get to continue to live in Calgary and be able to be, engaged with, like, I travel to Vancouver a lot. I will be traveling to Toronto because we're going to be opening, a store in Toronto. So I'll be doing that. I love the community that I have here. It's been supportive. Like, they're like, we have no idea what you're doing, but we love it. And and Calgary business community has been really supportive in terms of, like, my customers, right? So, and in some ways, what's great about it too is Calgary's the more American of Canadian cities. So we've got about 25% of our customers are American, and it gives us I think it's given us sort of this really good testing ground about, like, what the American customer is. Because, like, Vancouver is not really our customer. We do a lot of product-based production there. We've got great customers there, but most of my customers are more out east. And then in the US,
more
we've
the
got,
corporate
like,
space.
It's much more the corporate space. It's like, it's New York, Boston, Toronto, Montreal, London, Ontario. Ontario is a huge base for us in terms of, like, where we sell to. So, so I'm really all over the place, and Calgary gives me the ability to do all of that. But at another level, I feel completely disconnected now in a way that I didn't when I was.
Yes, if you're not part of the corporate space specifically.
I am not part of the corporate space.
It's really hard. I get that. I understand that.
Yeah.
As an entrepreneur and as a creative, I totally understand that. I love the fact that Calgary does have the Alberta Innovates starting to happen here.
Yes.
There's a lot of tech innovation. And I agree. I love being able to have remote teams and all the technology now. Like, I'm right now looking at Starlink going, okay, I want to work from a beach in 24 months.
Yeah.
I'm getting a Starlink system because I can still continue to work in, Central America. I'm out of here, right?
Yeah.
I'm tired of the Canadian winters. What is 3 pieces of advice or one amazing piece that you want to share, especially with women in business? Because we know that it is a very different kind of navigation. Women have to navigate financial worlds and business worlds slightly different, just like with the clothing, right?
Yeah.
What is for the next generation coming up? Those women in the entrepreneurial space, what would you share with them?
Oh, man. I think, for me, there's been I've sort of embarked on a few fundraising adventures. So I've closed a few friends and family rounds, like, not a ton. That was fine. And I've looked at sort of doing other things. And this is also, like, Calgary's a difficult space for that. Like, I know lots of wealthy people, and a lot of the wealthy people are like, Emma, this is really cool. I have no idea what you're doing, and I have no ability to analyze the space whatsoever, and I cannot make any kind of determination if this is, like, a good idea. And what do you do with that, right? So I think for me, it's been about getting I have to go to where things are more open for me, right? And sometimes that's not where you are, and that's okay, right? So that means I am starting to embark on finding the people who are in the spaces that I need to be in and who are the experts in where I need to go. The other thing is, like, start with a focus on profitability. we went through this cycle this year of sort of testing the waters of a raise, because we knew we had some really good stuff happening. We were profitable on our first sale. We had like great margins. We knew, we had a great process that we were able to scale. But we hadn't, and most brands don't really hit profitability till they hit about 10 million. We're going to do that at 4. But it shifted my perspective around it, because I was like, I'm out here trying to prove that I'm going to do something. And I felt like I needed to actually just do it instead. I was like, you know what? I'm going to just make the decisions and find the way and take the accountants, my CFO's advice, and we're going to dig in and we're going to like demonstrate profitability. And I'm going to give myself optionality and have it and shift the burden. And that, I think in the end, that's going to do well for us, right? So, and we've done that, and now all of a sudden, lending accessibility is getting easier.
Yes.
So I could go out and complain about the fact that I can't get access to this or that, but really it was about, no, focus on what's in front of me and not what's out there and what's within my control, right? And what was in my control wasn't the ability to get people to give me money. What was in my control was the ability to refine my business in a way that was super focused on becoming profitable and therefore sustainable, and therefore, right, so have Canadian banks driven me completely bananas? Yes, absolutely. Have I found other ways to get like inventory financing? I have. Do I need somebody's outside investment at the moment? I do not. Is that an extra pressure on myself? Yeah. Am I paying myself as much as I want to? No. But I think in the long run, it gets me to where. So it was more about like, okay, if I can't control any of these outside things, what can I control that puts me in a position where I can then have more of an upper hand when I'm going into those conversations, which gives me then more confidence to deal with that. So I don't know, that was kind of long-winded.
No, that's awesome, because what I'm taking away from this is take a moment and sit down. What can you control? Sit down and draw out the diagrams. Put everything on the table. Mm-hmm. Put your control circle down and put everything out around it. And whatever's inside your control circle, double down.
Yeah.
Double down. Do not expect anybody to come and save you.
No.
You are the person that will create. And I do think that we need to get away from feeling, around sales and around the word profitability. I do think we have to incorporate these in as positive words, not negative words.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you do, you can actually start focusing on scalability and sustainability.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Guys, check out SophieGrace. It's a beautiful site. And if you're like me and you grew up on Granimals from JCPenney's, it is such a blessing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today on the Back to Business podcast. Be sure to visit calpeteclub.com, CalPeteclub.com, to find out more about upcoming events, networking opportunities, and membership. If you are not already a valued member at the CPC, where we are proudly connecting and supporting Calgary's business leaders.